Good morning, everybody. Welcome into Denver Sports Coffee Break presented by Bath Fitter. Rachel Vigil and DMAC James Merrilat going to join us here in just a little bit. DMAC, how was your weekend? Full of lots of Colorado sports, but you weren't at Ball Arena. You just had to watch it on TV, like the normal muggles that you call us.
I very much missed traveling.
Mm.
But I was at home, so it was it was pretty mellow actually. I just kind of watched it on TV. So, but it's not that it wasn't without some drama, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. And there's obviously a ton to get into. We have to talk about Valeri Nichushkin no longer being with the Colorado Avalanche. You know, obviously last night's game with the Nuggets, you were hoping for an overtime victory, and it just wasn't in the cards apparently for the Denver Nuggets, D-Mac.
Yeah, it was a weird game. It really kind of was boring and not very interesting. Both teams blew 8-point leads in the first three quarters. Charles Barkley on TNT remarked that he'd rather be watching hockey than the Nuggets, the Wolves, and you realize that this might have the least amount of eyeballs because of the late time and the uncompetitive nature. It even seemed like Timberwolves fans were disinterested. I had a fan of our show reach out and said he got tickets for $10 each, like from the team in the 200 level of Target Center or whatever. And then, the Nuggets just couldn't hit some shots. And Anthony Edwards, I tip my cap to him. That guy's amazing. And they built up as much as a 13-point lead, but they had a 12-point lead with like 2:40 to go. Mm-hmm. And then it was just amazing. And then you just saw an incredible display by the Nuggets to fight themselves, going 12-0 and 12 points to nothing to tie the game. And if Jokic hits the first of his two free throws, they very well might have won that game, as KCP made a great defensive play on Anthony Edwards to send the game into overtime. And then it took just kind of a wild three-point shot by Anthony Edwards over Aaron Gordon to sort of cinch it. And I walked away from that game, sure, disappointed. A sweep would have been nice. They've never done it in their history. But, Rachel, they're such a better team than the Timberwolves. And I'm not saying that there's not talent there, but it was kind of an off night for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray was 8 of 21. Michael Porter Jr. did get hot late, but wasn't really himself. I think they're going to, host the Timberwolves on Tuesday and blow their doors off. And perhaps it's a lesson to be learned that you can't let up. And a much more difficult series with the Suns awaits. So I'm looking forward to 19,000 fans. That chant by the Wolves fans, it was either Wolves in 7. I mean, are your brains frozen? Okay. I mean, I guess it's self-deprecation. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to put it. Certainly delusional. The Nuggets are going to stomp the Wolves, and this will be a footnote, not a signature. We won't even remember this series come Wednesday.
I thought the Wolves in 7 chant was absolutely hysterical. We're not talking like a blowout by the Wolves by any means. This was an overtime game, and yet you're saying Wolves in 7. I give you props. I guess stick behind your team no matter what, as we bring in James Merrilat to also talk about the Nuggets game, because wow, I mean, they obviously start off really slow, and then, of course, you go into the whole third quarter, fourth quarter, just meltdown that happened by the Nuggets, and then, like you mentioned, D-Mac, you have those final 2 minutes where you're like, all right, Nuggets, like, we're putting something together. Here we go. James, what was your biggest takeaway when you watched the Nuggets game last night?
I don't disagree with really anything you guys have said up to this point. I think D-Mac's right. This is a footnote. However, you did see a little bit of a blueprint. I mean, the Nuggets had 84 points with 2.5 minutes to go in the game. Mm-hmm. So the final score is not indicative of how they played and how Minnesota defended them. So if you watch, they're picking up Jamal Murray 35 feet from the hoop, and they're on him like he's ready to shoot from there. They're giving him no space. The physicality away from the ball in particular, grabbing and clutching and not allowing players to move freely, cut back door. I mean, listen, that was a foul fest last night. I think to some extent the officials were trying to get it under control early, and everybody just kept playing the same way. And it's like, well, at some point, you can't just have everybody foul out. That's going to be the recipe, is get physical with the Nuggets, because they don't really have anybody that can beat you off the dribble. As good as Jamal Murray is, as good as Michael Porter Jr. is, they're not going to blow by defenders off the dribble. That was a little bit of a formula. And then my other concern was, the Nuggets have preached defense, 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 and they made offseason acquisitions all about defense. They still don't have a guy who can shut down the other team's best player late in games, which is what playoff basketball turns into. Anthony Edwards just was doing whatever he wanted last night, including a big three-pointer. So that's my two worries. That look, are the Timberwolves going to use this and springboard it to win the series? No, but there still will a couple of takeaways that if you're Michael Malone and you're the Nuggets, you need to worry about.
One thing for me in particular was what the heck happened to MPJ in the final couple minutes of the fourth in OT. It was just like, well, he's out there, but we're not going to give him anything. And that's when I was confused. I'm like, we've seen MPJ be massive multiple times throughout this series already, and yet we just saw nothing out of him production-wise, D-Mac.
Yeah, he was a little bit off in the beginning of the game, and then they get into this two-man game with Jokic and Murray. They've done this all year. I mean, they were asked about it afterwards, like, how do you get Michael Porter Jr. more involved? And they probably have to be more aware of that. That's been a struggle all year, that it becomes the Jokic-Murray show when you have a very talented guy over there, too. So, I don't know. I think they'll figure it out. I think the pressure on Murray is a thing. But in general, the way that you beat that is, if you can beat that up the court, you generally will lead to baskets underneath in the paint. If you got a guy pressing, it's going to leave space under the basket. So listen, I don't think this is a complicated thing whatsoever. I think it's like, okay, we get it. We'll see it. We probably set higher picks, maybe around midcourt or something. Opens things up, and it'll open things up for the inside game. I think one of the quirky little issues I have actually is Jeff Green. And I know Jeff Green defensively may be okay, but he is a disaster taking any shot from the outside. So if I were to just throw anything out there, I'd actually put Vlatko Čančar out for some of those minutes because he goes unguarded. And, Vlatko actually joked earlier this year that he's the worst guy on the floor because he is the worst guy on the floor. So he's going to get all sorts of open looks, as Jeff Green is as well. So it'd be an easy thing to just sort of flip-flop those guys, and I think you'd get better production. I mean, you'd be giving up a little defense with Jeff Green, but Jeff Green's giving you nothing offensively right now.
Well, and there are times when the Nuggets are playing 3-on-5 because the other teams, well, Minnesota in this instance, they're daring Aaron Gordon to shoot. They're daring Jeff Green to shoot.
Right.
So they have three defenders right on MPJ, Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic, and then two other guys just kind of hanging back in the paint, ready to help out and kind of just compacting that area. So that has become a problem. So it's something that Michael Malone has to address. You got to have somebody out there on the floor who can knock down those shots. If they're going to just leave you open, you got to beat them. To some extent, they were even doing it with Jokic yesterday. And for the most part, he was hitting the threes, except for the one late. I don't think it would have mattered, but yeah, a little bit of a lineup tweak might be in order. Jeff Green, I'm not trying to bag on the guy, but offensively, you're right, D-Mac. He's a bit of a head scratcher.
I like the Crayola Box crew, which is brown, green, and brown. I do, especially because of the nickname. But I think it's time to mix things up a little bit. I just think that little shakeup will inject a little bit of life. But I see the Nuggets winning by 20. And I think Michael Malone has said, we got to use everybody in this room. Okay, let's go. Let's do some more guys. Let's get more guys involved. Let's see what else we got here. And that should take care of business. Anthony Edwards is amazing. What can I tell you? But, Rudy Gobert, Jokic has basically taken him to town his entire career. And Karl Anthony Towns, that guy is like a slug, man. That guy doesn't move very fast. He doesn't shoot very well. I mean, he's a bigger dude, but that's not all that concerning. Now, I think it's relatively easy. I think if the Nuggets, it's a slight adjustment with the pressure that Minnesota is bringing, and that's it. Listen, again, Minnesota, you were up 12 with 2.5 to go, and you allowed the game to be tied. I mean, give me a break. To me, that's the bigger part of the story. Oh, okay, you didn't sweep them. Well, what team has been swept so far in the NBA playoffs, guys? Who
Brooklyn.
is it?
Brooklyn.
What over one team? Sixers swept Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yeah, the Timberwolves are the worst team in the playoffs. They're awful. They have one guy. Look, we can let the 12 points in the last 2.5 minutes mask a terrible performance for 45.5 minutes. We can do that if we want to. That's fine. They had 84 points in 45 minutes. They run nothing for their second or third best offensive player. Nothing. Michael Porter Jr., only thing he gets is if they kick it out to him when he's standing there. They don't run plays for him. Nothing. Nothing.
Listen, I'll give you this. It was
We run a two-man game. Okay, pick and roll. Let's run a pick and roll. Novel. They run it in every third grade team. I'm done. I'm good. No, it's a great performance.
I have to agree with James on this one. There was a lot of things that you were like, what's the game plan here? Like, what are we doing? I know you're the better team, and obviously their shooting percentage was terrible yesterday. And besides Jokic, I believe everybody else on this team shot under 40%. Like, that's awful, and that's not Nuggets basketball. But when you're not making those baskets, you got to find another way, and they just seem to, I don't know, kind of disappear when you thought, hey, this should be a dominant performance. They are the number one seed. Like, come on, let's play like it against, like James said, the worst team in the playoffs.
They'll take care of business Tuesday. This is a moot conversation. We really more.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But if they blow it on Tuesday, there's one team that's going to be tight.
James, Rachel, here's an important number. Okay, teams that are down 3-0 are 0 and 148 in NBA series. You got me on this? Teams down 3-0 are 0 and 148. That's the end of the conversation in terms of what the Nuggets have to worry about. I think there were 3 teams that got tied up at 3 games apiece. And even when that happened, they still lost in Game 7. I am not concerned about it whatsoever. Yeah, it wasn't a great shooting night. Could they have been a little bit more determined? Yeah, maybe. All right. But I am not freaking out whatsoever.
I'm not freaking out.
No.
But I think Rachel and I are just pointing out, like, hey, let's not gloss over the concerns. It was one of those games where when the Nuggets are forced to play half court, when they can't get up and down the court and get easy transition points, it's like, man, everything's a struggle. And how many possessions were you like, that's a tough shot? That's a tough shot. It was over and over and over again. You're not going to beat good teams. Or can you beat the Timberwolves taking good shots or bad shots? Probably. Are you going to beat the Suns when every time you're in the half court, it's a tough shot? No. Are you going to beat the Kings or the Warriors? No. Are you going to beat the Sixers, Celtics, or the best teams in the East? No. So, look, we can gloss over it, or we can point out a problem even in a series where they're going to win and hope they correct it.
And that's also my point, too. And I agree with James of, I'm not worried about the Timberwolves. But am I worried about the rest of the teams that this team is going to face when we're talking about the championship? Yeah, because if you give one team and you figure it out by one team, the worst team in the playoffs, and they're like, oh, we figured out the way to actually beat this team, you don't think other teams are going to follow suit? Of course, they had a bad shooting night, so we got to include that in this equation. But that's my main concern. I'm not worried about the actual Timberwolves. Yeah, I think they're going to beat them come Tuesday night. I'm worried about the teams afterwards and how the Nuggets have to be able to figure out a way to respond, even if they are having a bad shooting night, D-Mac.
Fine. I think we're more or less on the same page. I'm not saying anything becomes easy after the Timberwolves. I'm just saying, chanting Wolves in 7. I mean, I guess you got a sense of humor in Minnesota.
My favorite was the guy they showed in the crowd waving goodbye to the Nuggets when it was like a 5-point lead. It's like, dude, good for you. Your team's, you got to win. How
many beers have you had, sir? Calm down a little bit.
You're going to get the gentleman's sweep. Way to go. That's your last trip to Target Center this year. See you next season.
Exactly. Well, everyone in the comments is wanting to know the latest on Valeri Nichushkin, and I don't have any information to give. I wish I did to everybody. I know a lot of people are concerned, but D-Mac, do you have anything the latest on this?
Do not. It's been radio silence, and we're not in Seattle, so it's hard to, we're doing the best we can to track things down from where we're at. Mm-hmm. But definitely some sort of incident at the team hotel Saturday afternoon. Yep. Whether and how it was connected to Nichushkin, we're not sure, but there's things that are sort of lining up. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. So there was some sort of thing. Whether or not that involved Nichushkin, I don't know. Remains to be seen. But it's important to know that he was not at the morning skate that morning. And after that incident is when he was taken to the airport to fly to parts unknown. So there's a lot of rumors about what's going on. Tons of rumors. but we're trying to, we're working behind the scenes to do the best we can.
Mhm.
What I find curious is that nothing is being even leaked out. Okay, guys, nothing. Usually, and I would tell you, if it was just a personal thing, and we do get this all the time, like if a player's, wife is having a baby, or perhaps something sad, like there's a family member that's passed away or in ill health, usually we do hear about it. Now, I'm not saying that's not happening. I'm just telling you, things are all quiet on the Western Front. So I really don't know what's happened. I don't know what is happening. But guys, this is crazy what's going on. I mean, you just don't leave the Stanley Cup playoffs for no reason. And especially the day of the game. Something's going on that's relatively significant.
Yeah, and Will had a tweet last night that got a lot of pushback where he was saying, hey, the radio silence is causing a lot of these rumors to go. Like some transparency, some transparency would be good. And people are saying, oh, you got to have private lives. I get it. I understand that. But people are going to try to connect the dots. When you disappear on the day of the game, you go to the airport and you fly somewhere unknown. Like, that's bizarre. That's different. That's so unusual that people are going to ask questions. And when you don't answer the questions or you don't provide the breadcrumbs, they're going to connect the dots. And you're right, DMAC. If it was something positive like, hey, somebody had a baby, great. Nobody's going to begrudge that. If it was something negative like, like you say, somebody passed away, everybody's going to be sympathetic and, wish well. Like, if it was something like that, then there's no reason to not be transparent, right? I get it. You want to have privacy, but the question's going to have to be answered at some point, whether it was, the other night, whether it's tonight, whether it's at the end of the series, whether it's at the start of next year. If that's the first time we see Nichushkin, like at some point, the question's going to have to be answered. So you might as well just get out in front of it and be transparent.
Listen, if this was a 3-game Alberta, Vancouver, Edmonton roadie in February, who cares? Okay.
Yep.
Cale Makar didn't play for 3 games in that sort of series. We just assumed it was injury. We don't question it one way or the other. Bo Byram had concussion issues, but then he also had some mental health issues that he needed time away from the team last year too. We granted him that privacy. He was actually back with his parents until he was feeling whole and feeling better. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's the time of year where it's the Stanley Cup playoffs, and this is one of the top players in the world. Valeri Nichushkin is one of the top hockey players in the world, and he's a top 6 player, depending if he's on the first or second line, but he's a major player for the Colorado Avalanche. And then, okay, guys, you want to do this. You don't want to tell us more information. Then you start looking into that he's Russian, and there's, geopolitical things happening in the world that raises your attention. And there is timing with things going on in terms of what Russia is doing. So all of it was fascinating to me because I didn't even know that. So listen, I really would urge the Avalanche right now. I really would to just, get it out there some way, somehow. And I would tell fans too, don't you want that out of the media? I mean, aren't you interested and curious about what's going on? Are we supposed to just accept things absolutely blindly about this personal reason stuff without any clue whatsoever? So it's not like you have to spill the beans. I'll give you an example. If we were to know the specifics of it, and it was something that really shouldn't be revealed and personal, I think you would hear more voices just saying, hey, it is a personal thing. It'll come out later, and that's that. Mm-hmm. But right now, we just simply don't know. The concept of being driven to the airport and you fly parts unknown, that's not unusual. That's not a head scratcher. That's one of the wildest things of all time. Even back in the day, do you remember the Broncos brought on that cornerback who got caught with a prostitute during Super Bowl week of 2015? And they flew him out of there. They told us all that. We knew it. We knew he got caught with a prostitute with his brother, and they flew him back to Denver. I mean, okay. It's not like we haven't heard news about what happens that is bad in people's lives.
Well, and that was a player that none of us would have even noticed he was missing.
Right.
I'm not trying to knock the guy. Like he got way bigger cup of coffee with an NFL team than I did, but
I think his name
nobody
was
would have noticed.
Ryan Murphy. I believe his name was Ryan Murphy.
You're right.
And he was with his brother. They were from the San Jose area, and they made a really bad decision on Super Bowl week, but he was a low-level player. So it was kind of like to shrug your shoulders, well, that's an interesting story, and it had zero impact. Zero impact. The loss of Valeri Nichushkin could have a major, I mean a significantly major impact on the Avalanche in the playoffs.
I think it's hysterical that there are actually people out there who don't want the question asked. It's
Bizarre.
like they just want to be spoon-fed whatever information the teams want out there. It's like, I get it. I'm a fan too. And I want to hear that my team is great. Just like I want to hear that my kids are great, right? But you don't have to tell me they're the smartest kid in the class if they're not. You don't have to tell me they're the best athlete on the basketball court if they can't dribble and can't put the ball in the hoop. Like, at some point, we all can't just deal with a little bit of, hey, the world sucks sometimes and it's not all just roses and rainbows and unicorns about your team. Drives me absolutely nuts.
I just don't even know why they would want this hanging over their heads at all. I don't get it, aside from the fact I guess nobody will ask about it. I mean, I find it preposterous. It's a major big deal, and there's ways to get information out there without revealing private, while respecting privacy, so we actually know what's going on. You just had, if you're an Avalanche fan, one of the best players on your team leave hours before puck drop with no explanation to go somewhere nobody's going to tell you where he went. You're not curious about that? I mean, first of all, I'd be concerned about everything in his life. I mean, literally everything. And if you want to just leave this door open to speculation, well, congratulations, you've done it, because now we're 2 days later, about to play another game, and I guess the Avs will be on the ice here relatively soon for a morning skate. I don't know if we'll get more information this morning, but it's been absolute radio silence for the past 36 hours.
Between the time, what was it, like noon yesterday, I want to say, and like 9 o'clock, I was just continuously going down the rabbit hole of like, okay, well, is there any other information coming out? Like, what other stories are getting linked to it? And yeah, it does create a ton of speculation, which I don't always think is the correct thing. Even if they just said, oh, he went back to Denver or he has left the country, like those are some answers that can just, kind of lead people off the speculation. Because right now it's open to anything and everything. And I know, and the other weird thing about this whole situation, none of the national media is talking about it at all, it seems like. Like, I haven't seen any of the big reporters.
I am stunned this is not bigger news than it is.
I agree.
I'm flabbergasted that this is not bigger than it is. But I don't know. Maybe this series and Nichushkin himself are operating in the shadows. Maybe the information lockdown or curiosity of the hockey press knows its limits in terms of forechecking and penalty kill, not the personal side of the stories. But this is a major, major story.
Well, can either of you guys think of an example of when a player disappeared from a team and no information was provided as to what was going on? Like, Dennis Rodman disappeared from the Bulls back in the day to go be with Carmen Electra in Vegas, and everybody knew he took a vacation. Everybody knew it, right? Like, that's just how it works, and I get it. There's privacy issues, but not when you're a public figure. Yep. And when you're on a professional sports team, and part of what comes with, hey, there's a lot of rewards to it, right? Financial and fame and all the rest of those stuff. But you're a public figure. People are going to ask where in the heck you are when you disappear at the biggest moment. You're right, D-Mac. This isn't a preseason game in Seattle, and nobody gives a you-know-what. I can't think of an example of this.
There's a huge difference between what's going on now and, say, Bones Highland, who was disciplined for poor behavior and had to fly commercial down to New Orleans, and it was a consequence of him walking off the bench and all that. I mean, I'm giving Jared Bednar the benefit of the doubt when he says that this was not for a disciplinary reason. He said that. He was asked that directly. He said it wasn't for a disciplinary reason. Okay, fine. I'll take your word for it. Then what? a personal reason. Well, let's keep going down that path. And let me tell you, there are unbelievable rumors about what's going on. I mean, crazy rumors about what's going on. So if you want to just feed those rumors, keep going, because we're about to have another game tonight, and we have no idea where in the world is Valeri Nichushkin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the other thing. They're not doing Nichushkin any service by not telling people what's happening, right? Because no matter what it is, at least then there's one story. Now there's umpteen stories, right? And to certain people, whatever story they hear, that's the one that's going to always lodge in their brain. That isn't even potentially true. I just don't see the benefit of not being out front, not letting everybody know. It's a disservice to the player. It's bad all around. It's just a bad move.
I see Elizabeth comment and says maybe the Avs don't want the distraction by talking about it at this time in the season. My answer to you real quick, Elizabeth, is we heard Gabe Landeskog come out because he didn't want to be a distraction. He came out and said what was actually happening. By leaving it open for conversation, you're just creating a distraction. If it's not one of the hits tonight on, is it ESPN or TNT, whichever one is doing the game, it's going to be talked about because you are missing one of your best players, and that's just the unfortunate part about it is. And I'm going to ask the guys this question here in a second. D-Mac, I'll let you talk, but can they win the Stanley Cup if Valeri Nichushkin doesn't come back? Like, is he that big of a crucial piece for this Avalanche team? But D-Mac, go ahead and respond.
No, they've got to have everybody. Yeah. They're not that deep. They're not that strong. Valeri Nichushkin scored a key goal in game, 2, right? So, no, Nichushkin is a core player. He's a top 6 player. He's essential on the power play. Yep. He's one of the best players in the world. How many best players in the world can you play without and win the Stanley Cup? I think it's pretty limited. Yep. So, no, you cannot win the Stanley Cup without Valeri Nichushkin. No way, no how. You may be able to beat the Seattle Kraken. I mean, okay, fine. We're playing listen, the Nuggets and the Avs are both playing inferior opponents in the first round. What can I tell you? Okay, the Kraken have had a nice run. It's been impressive for them. All their fans can go back to, rooting on the Mariners and giving us crap about Russell Wilson. But that series is basically toast too. I think they'll put their foot on their neck tonight, and they'll finish them off here in Denver on, what are we doing, on Wednesday, I guess. I don't think there's much to the series left. So I think they can beat the Kraken without him, but they're not winning the Cup without Valeri Nichushkin. No.
James?
No, I'm 100% in agreement. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. They'll get out of this series. They can beat the Kraken doing what they did the other night, right? And it was, hey, all the stars shined because the Kraken don't really have any stars. They're a good team of role guys, and everybody does their thing. And listen, Nathan McKinnon's right. That they put up 100 points this year. That's a good hockey team. But in the postseason, they don't have the star power to stick with Colorado or Edmonton or somebody like that. Well, the Avs are going to get to an opponent that has maybe not equal star power, but has their own. You're not going to be able to do that when you're missing your, 4th or 5th best player? I mean, it's McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, Nichushkin. Like, he's probably next. I mean, if not, he's maybe 1 or 2 down that list. So, yeah, that's just not going to happen.
No, I'm with you. Let's look ahead to tonight's game, though, because you both are saying, oh, this should be easy. Avs should just roll through. I don't know if I feel that exact same way. I haven't seen enough. Yeah, we saw the stars come out, but how many times have the stars disappeared this entire season, you guys? I'm a little nervous about tonight's game, especially, too, because we've seen when the lines change, the chemistry can be a little off, D-Mac, and the line's changing if Nichushkin's not out there.
I don't know. The lines have changed for the Avalanche every game this whole year. They haven't had a lineup at one point. Bednar's done a masterful job in mixing and matching things and doing the best he can. I mean, making this late season change with Taves and Makar, splitting them up and putting Byram with Makar and Taves with Girard. It's not that they haven't played together, all right? Girard and Taves haven't played together because Makar's been out. But to make that sort of change now when everybody's healthy, I mean, that's pretty radical. And who knows? I mean, they played Matt Nieto on the second line the other night. And it's like, wow, okay. That's interesting. They're kind of all over the place. But I mean, at the end of the day, they have the second best player on earth in Nathan McKinnon next to Connor McDavid. Second best player on earth. They've got the best defenseman in Cale Makar. They've got a top 10 player in Mikko Rantanen. And you know what, guys? And Devon Toews was probably top 20. To James's point, I just listed 4 stars. I just listed 4 guys who are the best in the world. And you've got a solid goaltender in Georgiev. So, I don't know. It's hockey. The game, it might be a 1-goal game, a 2-goal game here and there. It might feel like it's close, but it was 3-3 going into the third period. And the experience of the Avalanche guys is just top notch. And that's when the stars come to shine. And the stars for the Avalanche have come through game after game after game. I have no idea why they wouldn't now.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, the final score the other night was 6-4. But talk about the prime example of not as close as the score would indicate. Because other than 18 seconds, when the Kraken scored 2 goals to get back in it when it was 3-1, other than 18 seconds, the Avs dominated the entire game. I mean, completely dominated the game. And even with that 18-second flurry and it got him back in it, the Avs just put, foot even further down on the gas and blew the doors off him in the third period. So that game without Nichushkin was the most dominant they've been throughout this series. Look, the Kraken had him for 4 periods.
Yeah.
They played better in game 1. They played better in the first period in game 2. Since then, it's been all Avs. I see no reason why that's going to change.
All right, over or under 6 goals tonight, James Merlot.
I'm sticking with the under because of the Kraken's style. They just like to play like a soccer team. But, boy, coming off a game when there were 10 goals scored, that seems like a risky proposition. But I'm sticking under. I think it's a low-scoring game tonight. 3-1.
I'll go 5-2, something like that. So I'll take the over. They don't forget in the playoffs, too, when they're down 2 goals, they pull the goalie and expose themselves. So you get all sorts of weird, cheap goals, at the end of these playoff games because teams have to act more desperately. The Avalanche pulled the goalie with 4.5 minutes to go in a game. So you kind of pick up these garbage goals a little easier sometimes in playoff games. So I'll go 5-2. I'll say it's going to be kind of like a 4-2 sort of thing, and they get an empty netter or something along those lines. Yeah, listen, I don't like it that the Avalanche give up. They just have these brain farts, and they allow some, it looks like easy goals or unnecessary goals sometimes. But, those guys get paid too, as the cliche goes. So to score 2 goals, though, in 19, 18 seconds, again, seems improbable. So I don't see the Kraken doing that again. The Avs are a determined crew. Listen, this Nichushkin thing is amazing. Because on Saturday before they left, I'm talking to Jared Bednar about how boring his team is. Because they've been so good on the road, and they do nothing. I traveled with them all last offseason. I swear to God, guys, you did not hear rumors about them going out to clubs or getting in trouble. So, again, this Nichushkin thing stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, what the hell is going on here? For a team that's so bland and boring as the Avalanche, where did this piece of drama pop up from?
Don't ask questions, D-Mac.
Oh.
Just let them spoon feed you the information they think you're able to, absorb and consume.
By the way, all right, I get it. Bednar's not talking about it. He's like, where's Chris McFarland? Where's Joe Sakic? Come on, guys. Get your head on the sand. I like both of them. I'm a big Joe fan. I'm a Chris McFarland fan, as I wrote about for DenverSports.com. But let's go, guys. I mean, you gotta don't listen. How about doing something for Jared Bednar? How about taking some heat off of him? Address it. Address the situation. Step in front of a microphone and say what the hell's going on. Period. The end. And you want to take heat off somebody. What is Bednar really supposed to say at this point? So I don't know. I think it's a weird situation. I think not being clean about it puts more pressure on the team and on the coach and on the players. You heard Nathan McKinnon after the game the other night. He said there's bigger things in life. What? What are we talking about? So, well, hold on a second. Of course, there are bigger things in life, guys. Let's go down that laundry list of bigger things in life.
A birth?
So we're not. But that comment kind of came out of nowhere. Yeah. And that was a tip, right? There's a lot of bigger things in life than a hockey game. But what an interesting comment just to come out of Nathan McKinnon's mouth at the end of a game. There's bigger things in life. I mean, I get it, but what the hell are you referring to?
And it's just leaving it open for speculation. Of course, any news we'll find out. We'll keep everybody up to date at denversports.com as always. But the prime effect is full force when it comes to Boulder, Colorado. I was at my niece's 5th birthday, which is crazy for me to even say on Saturday. But I know everybody else was tuning into ESPN to watch the spring game in the cold, snowy Boulder. Although I will say the Flatirons look beautiful with snow on them. James Maryland, what was your biggest takeaway from the spring game?
Well, it was a 2-hour commercial for CU. I mean, it was ridiculous. What's weird, though, is over the weekend and then again today, there have been some decommits and some guys hitting the transfer portal. So the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. So you would have thought that day would have been kind of a springboard. Doesn't seem to have been, but it was a celebration. It was a Buffs festival. It was awesome. I can't believe there were 47,000 people there to watch a practice, let alone on a cold, snowy day. But yeah, I got to admit, what's come down since then has been a little bit of a damper on the whole thing.
So not being a big CU guy, okay, I'm a closer buff. All of a sudden, I'm watching this, and there's some guy named Montana, and he's unbelievable. And the next day, he quits the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a little confusing to me. I agree with James about the 2-hour commercial. If they really want the attention, perhaps you should be concerned about your defensive line that has like 4 players and actually look terrible. And I'm watching the game. I'm like, holy cow! What team isn't going to score 50 on CU this year? That's what I was kind of thinking. With all the hype and all the excitement, I was seeing a pretty lousy defense. But hey, you want the attention, CU? You got it. And if you want that attention, and you're gonna be analyzed and scrutinized, where's your defensive line? Where's your defense? I mean, how exactly are you gonna stop anybody?
Rachel, I'm trying to sneak in here because I have breaking news on CU. Jordan Tyson, who was one of the best Buffs receivers last year, Pac-12 freshman player, he has just transferred out of the Colorado Buffaloes program. You could make the case that between Montana Lamonius Craig and Jordan Tyson, those were the only 2 guys worth keeping in the entire program moving forward, and both those guys now out within the last 24 hours. Tyson's recovering from a major knee injury, but CU is bringing in a lot of receiver talent. They really are. But these are some significant losses. And you can write it off and say they were 1-11 last year and yada, yada, yada. But it's not going to be as sweet, at least in my opinion, that nobody who was around for the dark days is going to get to experience some of this uplifting, including Montana Lamonius Craig, who was extremely devoted to the CU community behind the scenes, as well as Boulder. So something is a little amiss here, as James likes to point out here.
And here goes the speculation on it too, right? Of, okay, well now what's happening up in Boulder? What's going on in the locker room? Why are we seeing all these decommits? I got plenty of questions too. Trust me, I'm just as curious about this as Nichushkin.
Well, this to me is not confusing whatsoever. There's a style of coaching and presentation that is just not going to jive with everybody. And, as great as everybody's excited and everything's going on there, there's a degree of phoniness that's also happening that I get it. I understand why the kids who know that they're on the outs or don't really go with everything that's being put in front of them, and listen, the program needs it. I'm not saying it's bad whatsoever. The program needs it. And it's been like, lighter fluid on a barbecue. So it's a good thing overall. But, do not be surprised. Obviously, we're seeing some kids who aren't buying into it. And they know that they can go better places to suit their talents. And I think we're seeing some examples of it. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I think that's why it's happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. But listen, if you're going to be in the boat and you don't want to row, go ahead and go to somebody else's boat.
There you go.
And in the past, CU was in a position where it's like, hey, we'll just take whoever we can get. We need to fill every seat in the boat. It's not a good thing. I am curious. I'm a little bit worried by it, but I also realize there's going to be some attrition, right? You don't go from 1-11 to where this program wants to go without some bumps along the way, and it's been a pretty smooth 5 months for Prime up to this point. All right, you gotta deal with some choppy waters too.
Well, let me just point out the phony factor, okay? This whole you got to prove yourself, you got to earn a number, blah 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 blah. And then you see the broadcast. I think Travis Hunter literally walks on water. There was no doubt Shedeur Sanders was going to be the number one quarterback and are going to be like that. A lot of the same problems that happened when we had Dan, what's his face? Dan
Hawkins.
Yeah, we had him in because he had Cody, his son, in there too. And you inherently are going to have issues when you just have a biased little league sort of approach to how you coach a team. Players aren't stupid. The kids aren't dumb. They know there's going to be two sets of rules. One for these guys over here, 10 or 15 guys, and one for the rest of us. And don't be surprised if they have better options that they exercise them as they should.
But here's what's weird is you had weeks leading up to this that you were going through the program. Why all of a sudden after the spring game when all the attention is there, you're seeing these players just leave? That's what's weird to me.
It's the end of the spring season. That's it. It's you want to see things through. You want to get whatever credits you need to get as school is, closing in. It's just the time when things change. It's just, that's it. You're able to do it because the NCAA changed the transfer system to make it the wild, wild west. And say this Montana kid, and I don't know where he's going to go, but I'm sure there's going to be a good program where he's going to be the number one guy because Travis Hunter is going to get every pass in the book. He's going to play both ways. And if you're somebody like this Montana kid who feels well, maybe I should be the number one guy. Listen, what do you think? He has bad options? You don't think that kid could go to USC or Michigan State? Probably Michigan State, I would guess. I mean, he was recruited by Midnight Mel, so I would assume he's off to Michigan State. And I guess the way it goes, all these kids, let's keep in mind, guys, all these kids have been recruited by other people too. It's great what Deion Sanders has done. It's amazing. But kids have options. And there's other good coaches and programs out there as well. But what he has done for this program should not be belittled or talked down about. I'm just saying there's going to be some warts that come with it.
Okay, so my question out to both of you is this program already a success, or do you have to go out there and win some games? Do you have to be in the talk for a national championship? Do you have to qualify for some bowl games? Or is it already, look at the nation's talking about the CU Buffaloes. Is it already a success, James?
No, you gotta be bowl eligible this year. You gotta win some games. If not, we'll look back on this. This has the potential, and I don't think it's gonna go that way. But this has the potential of being Russell Wilson 2.0, right? The Broncos were all the story last offseason, and boy, isn't this exciting, and back on national TV all the time, and 5 of the first 6 games or whatever it was. All right, that's great. You can win the offseason, but that turns quickly if you don't win some football games. So I think it's a team that needs to win 6+ this year, be bowl eligible. I think next year they need to be a team that, all right, they're contending in the Pac-12. And then beyond that, it's, okay, does Deion stick around? Does he build upon that? Or once his son leaves, is he out of here too and going somewhere where it's not going to snow during the spring game? We'll see. But to me, those are the steps. I think if he stuck around and all things go well, is this a team that could be contending for a national title in 4 or 5 years? Maybe. But yeah, at some point you got to win. The rest of this is just all a show. And when you put on a show, people are ready to pounce if you don't perform. You better perform when the games count.
I don't know how to stop teams from putting 50 on them. Maybe you just scored 51, I guess. But, who do they have on defense? I mean, I guess Travis Hunter on offense and defense.
Well, up front on both sides of the ball, it was ooh, okay, that doesn't look like a team that's going to compete with USC and TCU and some of these teams.
They have 4 defensive linemen. 4.
Yeah.
4. That's it. 4. So
let's go Buffs.
listen, we're all going to be rooting for him. Everybody's tuned into it. But what we watched listen, we wouldn't pay attention to this, okay? Normally, it would not be a big deal. But you wanted us to pay attention, so we did. The Colorado Buffaloes are going to have a hard time stopping teams defensively. They are, okay? So you're going to be playing from behind. And right now, because you wanted to watch us, you wanted us to watch. Shedeur Sanders looks like a 6th or 7th round NFL drafted quarterback. He looks like that. He's like one of those type of guys. Okay? That game was tricked up in order to make him look good, and he looks all right. He's got an okay arm. He's got okay talent.
Come on. We're gleaning that from a practice.
Yes.
I'm not going to come. If I came on here and said he's a first-round pick, that would be balderdash too. But the other extreme is also balderdash. Like let's real football.
Hey, take my words, put them on a poster. There looks to be a lot of words on posters around that building, and hanging in a locker. Whatever. Listen, I'm not a CU graduate, and you wanted me to look at this thing objectively, so I am, and that's what you get. Okay, you get an objective opinion from somebody who's watched a lot of football over the years. Okay, a lot.
Okay,
and I saw a quarterback that will go in the back half of the draft if lucky.
You watched that practice, and you saw Trevor Siemian. You saw Dak Dicer. Those are 7th round picks. That's what you saw.
Basically, yeah.
I love that we're having this conversation about a spring game. I personally think it's going to be Russell Wilson 2.0. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, you're just a Ram, so of course you're going to think that. We'll see what ends up happening this fall. It's going to be very interesting as always, and we keep you up to date, DenverSports.com. James, you got anything good headed for the website today?
Do I?
Yep.
No, you guys are killing it. I don't have to do anything. D-Mac writes something every 8 minutes. Jake and Will are cranking stuff out. Cecil's got all of his draft coverage. Mace is all over the Broncos. What the heck am I going to do? No, I just sit back and take all the accolades.
We love it. We love it. All right, James Merla.
Award over the weekend?
We did.
What?
Didn't you win an award over the weekend?
We did, yeah. Mm-hmm. We did.
Best station website. All congratulate us.
Station website.
Yeah.
We did. Listen, I'm kidding about taking all the accolades. That has zero to do with me. That's all you guys. So you two and everybody behind the scenes, and that's fine. I can, take the attaboy pat on the back, but I'm about this much of the credit for that.
We couldn't do it without incredible leadership that we have out of you, James. So we will leave you with that. Thank you for hopping on coffee break. Look at G-Max like, yeah, we don't need James. Get him out of here. All right, the NFL draft is coming up this week, though, and of course, everybody's starting their rumblings of what's going to happen. Well, D-Mac, Tom Passarello, he was down there at the green room, and he has a nice little video showing, oh, hey, like, this is what it's going to look like.
I am in the green room at the 2023 NFL draft. Union Station in Kansas City. Somebody will be the first one out of this room on Thursday night. Somebody will be the 17th out of 17 prospects. I'll be live here for Good Morning Football and NFL Now all week. Carolina Panthers, you're on the clock.
You're on the clock. D-Mac, if you were supposedly going to be picked in the first round, would you go down to the draft or would you watch at home?
No way. Of course I'd be there.
No,
Are you kidding?
See, I wouldn't.
Oh, my God.
No.
Well, first of all, I really don't have that many friends. So to have somebody over the house, not sure. No, I would definitely go. Are you kidding, man? I give Goodell that I give him that big hug, and no, I'd be pumped to be there. I love the draft. I love the stories of the young men achieving their dreams, the families that stand behind them. I just think the whole thing is awesome. Just everything about the draft, I absolutely love. The hope springs eternal, and your team blew it, or your team did great, and this guy, that guy, the other thing. I just love it. And I'll be more excited even next year when the Broncos finally have a first-round pick again.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. That'll actually be really fun. I'm not really looking forward to the draft. I know Cecil's probably watching going, Rachel, you have to look forward to the draft. I'm like, I'm just not a draft girl, but I wouldn't actually go down to, it's in Kansas City this year. I wouldn't go to the green room and hang around in there. I would want to be at home as long as I knew that I was going to be like a first-round pick. Let me put it that way, because...
Well, yeah. I'm not going to go down there if something's question. No. I'm doing a victory lap there. I'm not. Yeah, I'm definitely not that.
But see, I want to hang out with like all my friends and family. I want to have like Buffalo Wild Wings. Not that I don't think I'd get Buffalo Wild Wings, but like have a bunch of wings and just like everybody sitting around. And like, I love those videos more than the guys that are just like walking up on stage. Like, I love the big crowded rooms of like celebration. I always think of Trevor Lawrence.
Well, yeah, that's a different question. Like, if you just ask me what is more visually interesting and fun, I would agree with you on that. You know, seeing a young man surrounded by the people that up is, you know, that's tremendous. You don't get that when you just walk out onto the stage. So no, well, okay, so it's two different things. You know, what's a better story and what does it look like? The moment when you get that call, like, son, we're drafting you, and it's, I mean, you know, you get chills. You know, it's just one of those great moments. All right, you're twisting my arm because who really wants to go to Kansas City anyway? So, you know, maybe you're right.
Although I've heard it's really just like a less expensive Denver. So maybe we should all check it out and just head on over to Kansas City and get out of Denver if you're here in the Mile High.
Kansas City is a less expensive Denver is being kind. I mean, less expensive Denver.
C-Mac, I'm just trying to get people out of the state. I know you're not a native, but my goodness, the traffic nowadays, the mortgages, the rent, I'm over it.
Of Colorado?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll be a greeter for Robson Walton at Walmart before I leave this state for Kansas City. That's for, so.
Fair enough.
I'll figure it out.
Fair enough.
It out. You know?
When we look towards the third round, though, with the Broncos, they obviously have back-to-back picks. If you're looking right now, what position are you really hoping that the Broncos dial in on?
Outside linebacker, pass rusher. Okay. There's 4 core groups, according to Sean Payton: pass protectors, pass rushers, secondary guys, quarterbacks. And I think you should throw in wide receivers, because I think that is becoming more, because of the rule changes and what's been going on. I actually think wide receivers are a higher priority than defensive backs, because you have a hard time finding lockdown corners. More and more teams are just playing varieties of zone, and what you need are zone busters. And those guys are really, really hard to find. So my pick would be outside linebacker, because I think Randy Gregory is hard to rely on a consistent basis. So I would go in that direction first. I know they're interested in tight ends. They inevitably will draft a running back too. And I would not even be surprised about this one. I would not be surprised if they moved up into the second round for a wide receiver that they think is a difference maker, which would tell me they're not very confident about KJ Hamler being able to come back healthy, which is a major concern, unfortunately, for KJ. He's a nice guy, and he's had a really tough run with injuries. But don't be surprised if they do that. And if they do that, Rachel, it'll tell you everything about what they think about the future of KJ Hamler, unfortunately.
Is this a heavy wide receiver class? I don't know how like in depth you've gone with all the prospects, but
look like Cecil, dude.
I know. That's why I wasn't sure.
Am I giving you I love the draft, but I haven't paid attention to any of it. I really haven't. No, because the Broncos just are not in the mix. Mm-hmm. And I've said a million times, I'm a mile long and 3 inches deep. You know, so any of my depth of knowledge beyond the first round, Rach, is suspect. And this year in particular, you know, not great. But, you know, that's why we have Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason and other, you know, great people. I've had this conversation with Mike Kliss. Kliss hates the draft. He doesn't hate the draft, but he doesn't dig into it as well, because his theory is, I'll get to know the guys when we get them. You know, once they get to the NFL. Mark Schlereth is like that too.
Me too.
You know, in general, I'm into this beforehand, but this year, Rach, I am as out of touch with the draft this year as I've ever been in my entire life.
Yep.
So it's just not that big of a priority, unfortunately, for us this year. I hope they get great guys. We'll see what they're into. I'm just judging stuff off Sean Payton and the weird things, not weird, but the things that he has said to the media. It's you know, we're parsing morsels here. But I would say, based on the roster, outside linebacker, maybe move up for receiver, tight end, and running back. There you go.
So interesting to move up for a receiver, because again, I'm just looking at, there's so many other, you know, questionable positions, and I don't know. I just find that so hard to believe, considering that, you're going to have to trade something else away for a receiver
Well,
or to move up.
probably a third and a fourth round pick to move sort of halfway in. The Broncos have.
And then they only have 2 other picks, though.
Well, right. They got 5 picks in total. So would you give up 2 picks for somebody special? I mean, and they have high third round picks. So it wouldn't take that much, in all honesty. And Sean Payton said it would be easy. He said that. It wouldn't be that hard to move up into sort of the upper third of the second round. Listen, it could be anybody if they do that, Rach. It could be anybody. And we don't know all the medicals and all the other stuff going on behind the scenes. So I wouldn't be disappointed or surprised by any decision. What it would tell you is what they think about the current position one way or the other. So don't be surprised with a receiver. It'll just be a tip-off that, and look at the size of the receiver and the way the receiver is probably a tip-off that KJ Hamler's not that great. If they move up, they probably have doubts if they get an outside linebacker about Randy Gregory. If they get a center, they probably have doubts about Lloyd Cushenberry. It's very easy with the first 2 picks in the third round to sort of see where they are with people.
I know you, I believe at least, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the person who says you can't be a bust if you're dealing with injuries, correct?
That's definitely not me, but I can think about that.
Okay.
What
I thought it was you. Somebody else here on Coffee Break has definitely said that. I am not in that. I think you can be a bust if you were picked very highly. But my question was going to be, is Randy Gregory a bust, not because of where he was drafted, but because of, the quality people were expecting out of him, etc.?
So is he a free agency bust? Yeah,
Yes.
It's hard to say he isn't based on what he's done so far. Don't forget Von Miller was in that class. You could have brought Von back if you wanted to.
Yep.
I think Randy Gregory was a poor decision based on his past. And we said it at the time. He is a nice guy. I've been around Randy now a few times. He's a really cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bust. It's hard when you take a big swing at free agents and they don't work out.
Yep.
It's just the way it goes. A log on the George Payton fire. What are we doing here? They could have moved on from his contract too, because he had a shoulder injury that they weren't completely aware of the severity. And they did have time to just sort of, say, okay, forget it. You have like a waiting period of like 3 or 4 days or so once you do the deal that you can actually get away from the deal. And they chose to roll with it. They found out after they picked him, they got him in free agency, that he had this problem. He would need surgery. They tried to cover it up. Yeah. And we have birdies, Rachel, and that's how we found out that he was really hurt. But okay. So, but whatever. Randy Gregory's probably good for 9 games a year, and that's been his history for his entire career. And I just don't know why things would change. So, Randy Gregory. So, I think you got to go outside linebacker as your highest priority if you move up. But then again, who knows? Who knows what Sean Payton's really thinking about? I know they're walking around on eggshells over there at Valley, not UC Health Training Center anymore. Yep. That's over. So they're walking around on eggshells. Everybody's trying to figure out how we all get along and how this is supposed to go. So we're about to find out a lot of interesting things about the Broncos, with the upcoming draft. I'm excited for it. I'm still excited for the draft. It's just not the same as it once was.
We're excited for the draft. We're excited for Game 5 between the Nuggets and Timberwolves. Game 5 between the Kraken and the Avalanche back here at Bell Arena. And then, of course, Game 4 tonight. Hopefully the Avs can get a win without Nichushkin. We'll have to see. Again, stay tuned. DenverSports.com will keep you updated on absolutely everything you need to know. And DMAC, as always, an absolute pleasure. Huge shout out to James Marilat, too, for hanging with us. And all of you in the comments. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. to hopefully be talking about an Avalanche win. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.